Okay, so welcome to Stats Online for a nice snow day on the 1st of March. So, I realized last week or 2 days ago that we only have one more um one more week before spring break, so that was kind of getting me a little nervous. So I'm going to go ahead and have us look at probabilities today. First, I wanted to find out were there any questions on anything. I know your homework is due tonight. I'm hoping that what we did last time helped you get that homework done. Just want to know if there was any questions on any homework before we get started. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually I have a on Canvas and I'm going to go ahead and show you where it is. So let me share my screen here for a moment. Shoot. Give me a moment. Okay, there you go. All right, so you should now all be able to see my screen on my iPad. And in Canvas, if I go into our course, in the modules, in chapter 4, and in the chapter 4 notes and videos link, I actually have some notes. I think I'm in the wrong course. I'm in the right course. Sorry about that. So in the modules, sorry. There we go. Trying to do too many things too fast. So in the modules, in chapter 4, in the book links and not the book links. Oh my goodness. I keep doing this. Okay. In chapter 4, in the chapter 4 notes and video, there we go. The very first thing here is chapter 4 guided notes. These guided notes here, this is what I'm going to talk about today. So if you want to download this file and open it on your computer, you could take your notes in there yourself. So, and there'll be kind of what we're going to be filling in while we go. I'll then post my fill-ins later today. So, I have it in another place. So I've got it here. So this is what we're looking at is this is what that file looks like. This very first piece here, we actually need to wait to do in class because you can't roll the dice because we don't have the dice with us. So we're going to do this one on Monday. We're back in class. But today we're going to go into the next page. So this is probability, and probability was invented by some mathematicians in the early the mid 1700s or 17th century, actually, I think it was. Because one of their friends, a gambler, was wanting to know when should he gamble more, when should he gamble less in the games of chance he was playing. And so he went to a mathematician friend of his and asked his mathematician friend, hey, when should I gamble more and when should I gamble less? So after this very simple question was asked, probability theory came into play. So this mathematician, I believe it was Pascal, he then went to another friend of his and asked his other friend for some help, and they developed all of the basic theory behind probability. Since then, probability has changed a lot from that point. I used to teach probability from a point of view of gambling, but we're running out of time and I don't really think we need to worry about that as much. So I'm going to do it from the point of view of other things we're going to look at. So here's an example that I'm going to deal with. And this is saying that the defects that Eyeglass-O-Matic manufacturers of eyeglasses for different retailers. They tested to see how many defective lenses they have made in a time period from January 1st to March 31st. And you've seen this data set before, and this is the data set defects. And what I'm going to do is I'm hoping to be able to do this. Not, yeah, there we go. Hoping to be able to copy that. No, that won't copy it. So I might have to just type it in. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this into RStudio to kind of find out what's happening in RStudio and what we can do with RStudio and to read that in. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that data set up. I'm gonna go into my RStudio. So here I'm in RStudio. And in this case with RStudio, I don't actually have an RMD file I'm gonna use. I'm just gonna use the console. So again, this is the console. I'm gonna clean it up so you can see it better. This piece right here, this is the console that we're looking at. And I want to bring that data file into play. So I would just copy that defects into here. I think I already have it in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at that. And there's my defects data set. So luckily I already had it in here from previous work we've done. So here's my data set defects. It's looking at all the defects are done when we made these glasses. And what I want to do is I want to do some work on this. I want to actually count up how many defects do I have. And we've done this command before, but I want to just remind you about this command. It's called the tally command. And to use the tally command, the next thing I forgot to have to do with is I need to go into trying to make this. So unfortunately, I can't get over to where I need to. I need to go to packages. There I am, packages. Packages. There's my. Oh, wait, what's going on? History, packages. Okay, so here's my packages. Okay. I'm going to go down my packages and I need to actually turn on the mosaic package because I want that. I need to be able to use that tally command. So I'm going to go ahead down here. If we're in the console, we have to actually turn these packages on. I'm going to go down till I find the mosaic package and it's again in alphabetical order. And the way I turn that on is once I get to that point, once I find it, mosaic. So you're not using any file. We're just doing everything inside of the console. So I'm not using any kind of file itself in RStudio this time. I'm just going to turn on the mosaic package. Here's my mosaic package. I'm going to turn that mosaic package on. It'll then do everything it needs to do to bring that package in. I'll clean this out again because you don't need to see all that. And now my tally command will work. So I don't need to actually open up any RMD files right now. I'm going to use this console. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my console. And so I'm going to type in my tally command. And then I need to use my tilde command. So I'm going to go get my tilde. And then I'm going to tell it I wanted to use that data set. And so I'm going to go look back and look at my files. If I can look at my environment, back and look at my defects. So what you're going to do, what you can do, and I should have said this again, I'll go back to my thing, is you're going to take in this PDF file that you downloaded, you're going to highlight this defects, the read.csv, all of this piece here, highlight this whole thing all the way down to the end of that line after at the parentheses there. You're going to highlight all that and bring that into your console. Make sure you've turned the mosaic package on. And there's my console, and I'm going to use type. So I want to type in the word type because that's my variable. And then I need to do my data set. And my data set's name is defects. I'm on an iPad, so things are not as nice as I'd like them to be, but it's gonna just make things a little bit easier. Okay. And then I'm gonna close that out so we get this bigger. So I actually have two D's in there. There we go. Okay, so here is my command I would use for this. So I now have the defects in there. I'm in my console, so I'm not an RMD file. I'm in my console. And in my console, I am then typing in this tally command. And my tally command, it's like every other command, you do your tilde and your variable. My variable in this case was type. And then I put in my data equals defects. And I'm gonna hit return, and it's then gonna count for me all of the defects and how many there were. So the defects, there were 1,105 too big glasses. There were 1,992 glasses that were flaking. There were 5,865 glasses that had scratches on them. So these are my defects type. I want to add a little bit more to this tally command because I'd like to know how many total there are. So I'm going to go into my tally command. And I'm going to type in my tilde again. And type in my type. So everything's basically the same that I just did. But I'm going to add one thing to this tally command. And this is the last thing we're going to do in our studio here. And what I'm going to add in here is add in margins. Margin equals true. And then if I hit enter, I typed in the wrong name of the data set. My data set is called not type, but something different. So I'm gonna type it again, my tally command again. Sorry about this. I don't like doing things online sometimes, but this will be faster once we get past this, will be fine. My variable name was type. My data set is called defects. That's where my mistake was. I called it type instead of defects. And then, like I said, what I'm going to type in at the end, I'm going to type in margin equals true. And what this does, okay, I hate PC. I hate, I'm getting really tired of my iPad because it's doing things to me, and I apologize one more time. Type this again. And the problem is it keeps putting an extra T in there, and that's why I was having issues. All right, so we're gonna type this one more time. Because it's an iPad, I can't do some of the things I like to be able to do, which you can do on a PC. This does show you that you can do all this on an iPad. So if you don't happen to have a and then you can do everything on here. The margin equals true. And what this, I have no idea what it just did. All right, we're just gonna take this. I know this is the command. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. I'm gonna do this on my PC, and then I'll come back to the iPad. Let me stop sharing for just a moment here. going to share on my PC, and we'll do it on the PC. It's much easier. So on my screen, I'll share my screen. I'm going to go into my RStudio. Apologize to everyone for this. I'm not usually this bad with this, but I'm not good with my PC, my iPad as much as I'd like to. So we're going to go to our Hive. I'm going to log in. And again, what I want to do, and luckily for me, because I was just in it, it just kept everything I had. And the thing was that I did an extra margin. There we go. So now I finally have it working. And so now if you see what it did is it took and gave me my type. It told me how many axes we had and all of that, but it also gave me my total. And that's actually what I wanted, was this total stuff. So that's actually what I want to have and what I want to work with in my file. So again, the file is in modules and is in chapter 4 and is in chapter 4 notes. And you want to actually download it so you can actually write things on it. So we're going to go ahead and download it. And I'm going to open it up just a slightly different place just so I can play around with it a little bit differently. But that's what you would do. You download it. Now you open it up. And then you will be, I think it's in here. Okay. So I just won't have my nice little iPad to work on, and that's okay. So give me just 30 more seconds. This will be up in a second. And so again, what we're working with is this piece here, is this problem here. Like I said, what you would do is you would copy this line here, this defects line, put it into your RStudio, and then from RStudio, you can then do those calculations we just did. If I go back into my RStudio, oops, wrong one, back into my RStudio, I would do this tally command. I would put that data set in, which I didn't have to because it was already in mine. Yours might already be in your environment. I'm doing it inside of the console. I'm not using an RMD file, and I need to make sure I turned on Mosaic. Once I have this, I can copy all this, put this in my notes with me. So here's what I just got from RStudio. This is what I typed in with the tally command, the type, the data equals defects, and margin equal true. What margin equals true does for me is it gives me this total. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to find probabilities. So as an example, if I want to find a probability of, let's say I want to do the probability of an axis defect, then that would be how the way we do probabilities is you're looking for how many ways does the thing happen over how many ways does anything happen. So we know that there were 1,838 defects from an axis out of 25,891 defects. So there is my probability. I don't need to do anything more. Probabilities are just the number out of the total. So if I want to find the probability of, let's say, scratches, then I would just take and look to see how many scratches there were. And there were that many scratches. And then, whoops, I'll just type it in. So there were 5,865 scratches over 25,891 of anything. So that's my total number of defects. And so that gives me all of my information. If you want to make these into decimals, you can. I prefer to leave them this way because now I know that there were way more scratches than there were axes issues. And I know how out of how many there were. So I like to keep it in this fractional form. I don't reduce the fractions. So you are always taught in your classes, always reduce your fractions, but we don't do that anymore. In stats, we actually, in probability, we want to leave these as they are. So we know that we had 5,865 scratches out of 25,891 defects. So it gives me an idea of how many. And I like to keep them in this format. So I could calculate all of these. And in fact, RStudio can actually calculate these probabilities for you if you want to have them as proportions as decimals. So if I go back into RStudio, a way I can do this in RStudio is instead of, I can actually do, and I never do this command correctly, so you have to bear with me on this one. Remember, you can hit the up arrow. If you hit the up arrow to bring back your previous type in, so I can bring that last one in that I did. Actually, I don't need the margin one anymore. I want to do format equals proportion. I believe this is the right command. We'll see what happens. And so, yeah, so that actually will make these into decimals. So if you want to have them in decimals, you could use this command instead to get them in your decimal format. I am actually going to leave on, I'm going to put this back, do this one more time and put back in the margins equals true. Because I want to show you something that happens here. So I'm actually going to use this to kind of show something that's going on. All right, so bringing that back over into where I was. So again, I have all these nice probabilities and so forth here. So I know actually for my axis, my probability is 0.07, which is 7%. Being too big is 0.4%, I mean 0.4% or 0.04. I don't know what some of these are, so I won't worry about all of these. Height is they got the wrong height. And again, about 4% of them had height problems. Lost, I hope that's not too high, but looking at it, 3% of them, almost 4% were lost. So it looks like we can see which ones are more popular and which ones are less popular. So did you remember, you have it turned on? So turn off the tally command and turn it back on. Sometimes that, I mean, not the, turn off Mosaic and then turn it back on. Sometimes that will happen to where it gets kind of confused in what it's doing. So if I'm in RStudio, what you can do is over here in your packages, you can actually go and click on Mosaic and it will turn it off and then turn it back on. So see if that works for you. If not, we'll have to look at it on Monday. But usually if you turn it off and then back on, then maybe that your tally that it didn't actually work the first time. So try that this time, but see what that does. Let me know if that works. Okay. So I want to point out something to you. These are the probabilities of all of the different activities they did. And the total is right there. And that total is going to become important later. So I just want to point out to you that this is the, if I added all these up, I'm going to get that number there. And I want you to kind of remember that number for a little bit later.